Welcome back. Well, while Bhutan celebrates its new democracy, the government will quickly find itself busy confronting some of Bhutanese society's more deeply ingrained issues. One of those issues is addiction to alcohol, a problem found even among the country's school children. When I travelled to Bhutan, I discovered that the problem is so widespread that the country is struggling to cope. Battle ancient Bhutanese style, in combat with the enemy at the yearly Situ Festival in the old capital of Punica. Centuries on and a new battle is raging in the land of the Thunder Dragon, a fight against alcohol and drug abuse.
I started off drinking alcohol, I switched to drugs, and I ended up in alcohol again, because I thought alcohol, like I said, is accepted by the Bhutanese society. So I thought, alcohol does me no harm.
Alcohol is Bhutan's #1 killer, and the number of abusers is rising. Sobering facts, but it's a problem often dealt with behind closed doors. Though here at this rehabilitation centre in Bhutan's capital, Thimphu, it's a reality many are facing up to.
Drink with you. I was an alcoholic before, so that ruined my life. It cost me my job, my family, my friends. At the end, I was on the street.
But on the streets, it's not just alcohol Bhutan's youth are experimenting with. There's an increase in the prevalence of drugs like ecstasy, heroin, and marijuana. Cut off from the world for over 350 years, Bhutan opened its doors in the 70s, allowing for the introduction of television in 1999, followed very quickly, some claim, by other social ills of Western society. And along with it, nightclubs, another sign of rapid modernization. Alarmingly, half of the 8 beds in the country's only psychiatric ward are filled with desperate and desolate addicts.
In certain communities in our country, children are introduced to alcohol from very early age, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6. And also the drinking is not a taboo, both among children as well as women and men.
Bhutan now has one of the highest per capita consumption rates in the developing world. And alcohol is a fast-growing business. It provides a livelihood for many locals who brew traditional liquor from their homes. But if the long-term perils of alcoholism are to be avoided, Bhutan had better start sobering up. Still joined by our guests in Cologne, Germany, Dieter Brouwer, and in London, Soraya Suberi. Mr. Suberi, if so much of the population is drunk, what are the long-term problems?
Well, the long-term problems for the country is facing up to the challenges that globalization brings to the country. When a country decides to join in the bandwagon of globalization, it comes with its own positive and negative consequences. So I think preparing the country well to face the challenges that the globalization brings to the country, I think the government, by the sound of the report that you have just broadcast, I think hasn't prepared well for the country. When you go for an open society, a plural society, and in that society, different people will have a different role to play. And when people are playing their role, some of them could be a negative one for the country, for the population. So I think managing the change that is taking place in Bhutan, the country is going through a huge process of both a transition and transformation. And in that process, the government has to do its best to make sure that the population is protected from the vices of globalization.
Because, Mr. Brouwer, 2 of the election issues were poverty and lack of infrastructure. How much is that hampering Bhutan's development?
Well, I think we are concentrating much too much on a problem like alcoholism or the problem of the refugees earlier in this broadcast, because we're not talking about the positive sides which development has brought to Bhutan. And Bhutan has made major strides towards modernization, developing its infrastructure. bringing modern amenities and facilities to the people, bringing electricity to the villages, protecting its environment in a way which almost no country in the world is doing. Even the constitution says that 60% of the country should be under forest cover and remain so. And the government is one which is praised by outsiders for its good governance. Of course, modernization brings problems, and the introduction of television, internet, etc. has also brought trends from neighboring countries into Bhutan. But I've visited the country many times, and I've not encountered it as a country populated by alcohol-seeking juveniles, etc., drug and heroin. But you find very sober people, a very well-educated bureaucracy and leadership, and you will find that they are very conscious of the problems. You can read about the problems in Künzel and other newspapers in the country. People are aware, the government is aware, that these influences from outside are dangerous to the development, and this is why they are going so carefully and cautiously on their way to modernization. And this is why they have this ideology of gross national happiness, which is countering all these trends from outside and says what is important is not economic growth, but what is important is that people are satisfied with their lives, that the quality of life is there. And you have, for instance, free schooling and free medical services in this country. They are constantly being improved. So I think we get the wrong picture if we think that the country is just submerged in alcoholism, drug abuse, etc.
Okay, Mr. Subedi, China and India, two of the major regional players and both neighbours, are looking with great interest at Bhutan. How do you think this is going to play out? Bhutan has a stronger allegiance to India at the moment.
Indeed, because of the traditional relations between India and Bhutan and the existence of a treaty signed with India, Bhutan has been closer, a lot closer to India than with China. But at the same time, Bhutan has done very well in maintaining its own equilibrium and taking this very cautious approach to modernization and democracy. So I think Bhutan doesn't have any serious problems with any of its neighbors, which is a good thing, unlike many other countries in South Asia which have bilateral problems with each of the neighbors, so on and so forth. But Bhutan has remained a peaceful country, and as the previous person speaking from Germany said, I think the commitment to maintaining the environment and so on and so forth, a very welcome thing. But at the same time, the process of democracy, I think in the country that is taking place now is not as inclusive as it should be. And the challenge for the country from now on is whether the power, the real power from the king is transferred to parliament, whether there is a real choice offered to people rather than restricting the political structure to two political parties, whether there would be more political parties allowed to operate, and especially those living in the south, where lots of people of Nepalese origin who are Bhutanese, who have been living in that country for a long time, will have free choice and will be able to have them represented through their own political party. Remains to be seen.
Mr. Surya Subedi, thank you for your thoughts on Bhutan's move to democracy. Yours too, Mr. Dieter Brouwer. And of course, thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now.